it was also an expansion year for the league. They welcomed not just one, but two expansion teams into the league. We saw the arrival or the return of California to women's professional soccer in this country. San Diego Wave FC, Angel City FC entered the fray for NWSL and really did so. Really did so in a big, big way. We're talking about two teams that like made their entry and like left their impact immediately in this league.
Totally. I mean, attendance records were broken. It was the adding of these two teams, both of them in California, raised some questions. I mean, people didn't know what was going to happen. That's players didn't know, fans didn't know, media covering it. You and I, we weren't sure how this was going to work because when you look at some of the attendance of other clubs across the NWSL, they're hitting a couple thousand every single game. So the fact that there could be two expansion clubs in, it's growing the league from 10 teams to 12 teams, both of them in Southern California, and for them to just smash it out of the water. And that's just in terms of like on paper and what these clubs are able to do. Then when we look at the pitch and what they were able to do on the field, Angel City finishing middle of the pack at the end of the year in eighth place, 29 points in the 2022 season. And San Diego Wave, Casey Stoney's team, ends up finishing third in the regular season. They make a playoff run. They host a playoff game because they're number third seed heading into the playoffs. This was just, it was like record breaking after record breaking after record breaking. It was so fun to watch these clubs, to see the players that they signed. That was such an exciting part of last year, going through the expansion draft with these two clubs, the NWSL college draft, to see Alex Morgan, a player going home to San Diego where her family is and to raise her daughter there, to be happy playing where she wants to play in Southern California. Kristen Press going home to Angel City, Ali Riley playing with Angel City. The everything that surrounded Angel City and San Diego this past year and adding these expansion clubs is just layers upon layers of positive things that happened for the league, for women's soccer, and for these players.
I don't look. I'm thinking back to when we're doing this year in review, but I'm also thinking back to when we did like way too early predictions, and we were like, historically, like expansion teams need an adjustment period. We were talking about a 2021 off season where Houston Dash was still chasing their first ever postseason appearance.
Mhm.
It's tough. It's a tough league to try to make a postseason, and what was that going to look like for these two
Yep.
expansion sides? And Angel City staying in it all the way to the very end, and San Diego never falling any lower than third place on the table. Just very impressive all the way through. It set some standards for them. It set the bar pretty high, I think, for both of those clubs respectively. So what they are going to look like in 2023 might be a little different. We'll see if San Diego continues to build and build and build. We'll see if LA breaks through and gets to the postseason on their end. But it was exciting. You mentioned Alex Morgan, and I think we got to stick with that a little bit because that was also in terms of players and their individual seasons with their respective clubs. I think this is a player um, that many were wondering, what her
Mhm.
season was going to look like. And with Alex Morgan going from Orlando Pride to San Diego, it was probably one of the bigger storylines in 2022, just in the sense of the player that it was. But it
Mhm.
was also technically the third NWSL team that she was going to help build from the ground up. We're talking about getting her start with Portland Thorns, a team that had never existed, prior to NWSL, with other women's pro leagues, in the country. Then going to Orlando Pride, an expansion side in 2016, and now San Diego Wave. So it's just like, wow, like Alex Morgan is just really out here, NWSL, like helping to build NWSL franchise profiles across the league, and players who we've been talking about throughout 2022, unfortunately, maybe fitting in certain categories of having to deal with injuries or making returns from different types of injuries in the off season, or mothers sort of making their return to form after going through pregnancy and sort of getting that schedule with being a mom and having their kids sort of connect with them as pro athletes and navigating the waters as a pro athlete navigates those type of schedules. So to sort of see Alex Morgan go through this, and Oswald, shout out to you, hitting it right on the head here. I don't know if anyone could have predicted that this was going to be 2022 was going to be Alex Morgan's best
No.
career year in NWSL.
I never predicted that, just kind of where she was going, and you couple that with the brand new expansion teams that historically have never done very well in a growing league, and the fact that San Diego and Casey Stoney did bring in a player like Morgan, who had built 3 teams, who understood that, who had been in the league for 10 years, who had played in other professional leagues, who has the caliber to, and the name, right, to put seats at this, to put fans in the seats at the stadiums. But it's so much more than that, right? It comes down to the training day in and day out, bringing that professionalism to the other players on the team, with rookies that are on this team, right? You look at how many rookies are on San Diego and what a player can do like this. And Sandra, you and I spoke with Alex Morgan early last year, about a year ago, about going to San Diego. It was really early in the season, about kind of how this team was doing, what was developing there, why she wanted to go to San Diego, and what drew her to this club. And she talked about how she was really happy playing for a club like San Diego. And she was finally giving her all because of understanding the international schedule and understanding where the breaks would be and how much more time she would have training with her club team. And at the end of the year, Alex Morgan becomes the 2022 Golden Boot winner. It's like insane. She scored the most goals throughout the in the league. 15 goals through 17 appearances for San Diego Wave. This was a player that just turned it on and never turned it off. And there was a moment there where there was a lot of skeptics being like, hey, Alex Morgan, you're only scoring penalty kicks, but a PK is still a goal. It still counts. It still helps your team win the game. That to me doesn't matter at all. But this is a player that took everything that was being thrown at her and turned it all around, and did have her best year in the NWSL this year.
I'm just smiling listening to you talk
I
about it,
know.
just because it's like we're getting a chance to reflect on the work that we did throughout the year as well. And we talked to Alex Morgan a few times over the course of 2022, but that very very early one was, I think, kind of set the tone right away. Just sort of how
Yeah.
she was feeling and what she kind of wanted, like, for herself with San Diego as well. And we joke about, like, not who could have predicted, right? But I'm sure if you, like, ask any of those players in the locker room, they were like, we did. We knew
Yeah,
we were
we
gonna,
know.
like, we knew we were gonna have a historic season, and we knew we were gonna do this. So that's very very excited to sort of watch all of that kind of come to life, and have that sort of same mindset, no matter what phase of the career those players were in, whether it's somebody like an Alex Morgan, or if it was someone like a Sophia Jakobsen or Naomi Girma or Taylor Korniak. So very, very cool to see Alex Morgan go on the run that she did. And, ahead of a World Cup, that's not, it's not a bad timing for one of your biggest players, sort of have that kind of club year.